Somewhere in the quiet green heart of the Missouri Ozarks, there's a little valley ringed by ancient hills and a small town sitting down in it. The town is called Iron Mountain. It's a peaceful place, a lake, some houses, a few roads winding through the trees. But there's something strange about a town named Iron Mountain. Because if you go looking for the mountain, the actual mountain, you won't find it. It's gone. Not worn down by time, not hidden by the forest. Gone. Somewhere in the last 170 years, people came here and they took the entire mountain away. And then they kept digging, straight down into the hole where it used to be. This is the story of the Missouri Iron Mountains, how a country ate them, one railcar at a time, and the strange, quiet thing that moved into what was left. Here's the part that's hard to even picture. We think of mining as digging into the ground, a shaft, a tunnel, a hole punched into a hillside. But Iron Mountain wasn't a hole in a mountain. Iron Mountain was the mountain. And the plan from the very beginning was to remove all of it. So let's start with the rock, because the rock is the reason any of this happened. Long before the town, there was a hill here that early settlers swore was made almost entirely of iron. Not thin veins of ore threaded through ordinary stone, iron, right at the surface in staggering quantity. In 1836, a group of investors formed the Missouri Iron Company, took the tract the next year, and by 1844, they were mining it in earnest. The first furnace roared to life in the summer of 1846. And here's how they did it. They didn't tunnel. They worked the whole hill as one enormous open cut, a growing bowl carved down out of the top of the mountain, and they just kept going. There's a line in the old Missouri mining records that stops you cold. They worked the vein, it says, until all that was left of the little mountain was the hole. The mountain didn't shrink, it inverted. It became a pit. And when they reached the bottom of where the mountain used to stand, they followed the iron another 280 feet straight down. Sit with that for a second. They removed an entire mountain and then dug a mountain's worth of hole beneath it. All told, Iron Mountain gave up close to 9 million tons of iron ore. It was mined without stopping from 1844 all the way to 1966, and it still worked today for crushed stone, which makes it, by some counts, the longest continually mined piece of ground in the entire United States. Early boosters bragged that the mountain held 212 million tons of iron. That number was almost certainly a wild 19th century sales pitch, but the truth underneath it was staggering enough. Now, how do you actually move a mountain? You build a railroad to eat it. By the 1850s, the young city of St. Louis was hungry for iron, and it laid a line running south into these hills for one reason: to haul the mountains back to the city. They didn't even disguise the purpose in the name. They called it the St. Louis and Iron Mountain Railroad. In 1857, the tracks reached the next town over, a place called Pilot Knob, and the iron began flowing north by the trainload. Pig iron, rails, the raw bones of a growing country. The mountains of Missouri were quite literally being reforged into the machines and railroads of America. But it's that other mountain, Pilot Knob, where this story takes a turn nobody sees coming. Because Pilot Knob wasn't just a pile of iron, it was high ground, a steep, distinctive peak rising nearly 600 feet straight up off the valley floor. And in the autumn of 1864, that made it one of the most dangerous places in Missouri. The Civil War was grinding toward its end, and a Confederate general named Sterling Price marched an army of 8,000 men north through these hills, aiming to seize St. Louis. But at the foot of the Iron Knob, someone was waiting. A small Union garrison dug into a squat, six-sided earthwork called Fort Davidson, under a general named Thomas Ewing. On September 27, 1864, Price threw his whole army straight at that little fort, and in the open ground beneath the mountain of iron, his men were cut apart. In a single afternoon, roughly 1,000 Confederate soldiers were killed or wounded. The Union defenders lost fewer than 100. And Price still hadn't taken the fort. Ewing knew he couldn't survive a second day, so that night he did something audacious. Under cover of total darkness, his men crept out of the fort in dead silence, slipped straight through the Confederate lines, and dragged a couple of cannons out with them. And on their way, they lit a fuse to the fort's powder magazine and blew it sky high, so the enemy could never use it. Price had lost 1,000 men and a full day at the base of a mountain of iron and gotten nothing for it. His raid never recovered. So what's left of all of this today? Go to Iron Mountain now, and the mountain is a memory, a hole, and a quiet lake, and a town that kept the name of a thing that isn't there. Go to Pilot Knob, and the fort still stands, the earthen walls, and the crater where that magazine went up, preserved as a state historic site you can walk right across. But here's the part I can't stop thinking about. The mountain they hollowed out didn't stay empty. Those cold, dark, abandoned mine shafts drilled into Pilot Knob turned out to be a nearly perfect place, perfectly still, perfectly black, perfectly cool to spend a winter. And something found them. Today, the tunnels that men blasted into that mountain in search of iron shelter nearly 1/3 of the entire world's population of the endangered Indiana bat. The whole summit is now a national wildlife refuge, and it's closed to people. Not to protect the iron or the history, to protect the bats sleeping in the dark in the empty space where the ore used to be. Think about the whole shape of that. Men came to this valley to take a mountain. They carved it into a pit, built a railroad to carry it off, bled 1,000 soldiers at its feet, and forged it into a nation of steel. And when they finally left, the hollow places they'd blasted into the earth became a sanctuary, a thing we now guard and keep dark and leave alone. So the next time you drive through a quiet little Ozark town named after a mountain that isn't there, remember what it cost to move it. Remember the pit and the railroad and the fort and the 1,000 men in the grass. And remember who lives there now, sleeping in the dark, in the shape of the mountain that's gone.